Orientation Cum Faculty Development Program. I am honored to share with you that today's research person is a renowned social scientist, Professor Ramu Maniva. His theme of deliberation today is on art of teaching, and insight. Professor Ramu Manivanan is currently affiliated as a visiting professor and community scholar at the Joseph Corbett School of International Studies, University of Denver, USA. He is the chairperson of the Multiversity Research and Teaching Institute, Vellore, Tamil Nadu. He served as a professor and head in the Department of Politics and Public Administration, University of Madras for 16 years. He taught in Delhi University for over 18 years before joining the University of Madras. He was a fellow of the United Nations University, Tokyo, Japan. He has been published 7 books and several articles, both in India and abroad. He has been the Fulbright professor at the Joseph Corbett School of International Studies, University of Denver, USA, 2003. Visiting professor at the Department of Southeast Asian Studies, University of Passau, Germany, 2014, Department of Political Science, University of Paris, France, Department of Peace and Conflict Research. He has successfully guided many scholars in Delhi University and Madras University. His academic achievements runs into pages, but which I can do justice within a few minutes. With these few words, I invite Professor Ramu Manivanan to address the participants. Now, I hand over the session to Professor Ramu Manivanan. Sir, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Professor Mautami Jena, and distinguished faculty members, and my dear colleagues, and the research scholars, and Honorable Vice Chancellor, and all the distinguished members who are joining this special orientation program. And I'm both honored and deeply pleased to be joining you over this occasion, and particularly on a subject that we are talking about, the teaching. And the title that I had proposed and presented, and also in discussion with the distinguished Vice Chancellor and the faculties, about the art of teaching. But first of all, let me be humble to say that the art of teaching, in fact, is from my insights, has been from my experience, from my insights that I want to share with you. I continue to be a teacher, and to say that what I bring to you is that I have not left the university system, and in the last 40 years, in the 40 years that we have been in the university, I mean that it's not by age that I want to share my experience, but by the sheer joy of being as a teacher. And the first impression about being a teacher is that I want to share with you, to be an artist, you must have a passion. You must have a passion, you must have an interest, you must have a commitment. This is the first thing, to be an artist, and to be a dancer, to be a musician, and to be a writer, and to be anything. You must have a passion for that. What do I mean by passion is that passion is not simply a pleasure. I want to say passion is not a pleasure, and passion is about a vision, and is about a vision. I want to recall the quote by Dr. Abdul Kalam, the former president of India, and the quote, one of the most beautiful quotes that he had said, among all the quotes he had said, that what I really like to recall is that um, a dream is not something that you witness while you are asleep, and but it is actually what you are fully awake. When you are fully awake, that you dream and you pursue a dream. So that's really a passion. Think about it. My dream, you pursue it in your sleep. The passion for being a teacher is the most important criteria. And to be an artist is that when somebody say, "Oh, you do such a wonderful art, a piece of art about a tree and about nature and about human figures and anything that you may just say, and anything that you may attribute to the human figure in excellence. You might be a great artist, but first of all, you must first love what you're doing. That's the most important criteria of art of living itself. Art of teaching is about art of living. Like it applies to all professions. I don't want to say that it only applies to teaching, and it applies to a doctor, it applies to an engineer, a scientist, a lawyer, and everybody, and people doing all activities in life, that you must have a passion. So, going by this, I want to recall another a fascinating statement made by a very famous painter, Picasso. Picasso, you being a faculty and senior scholars and young scholars, you should know, Picasso was a very important artist of in the 20th century, a French artist, and he said that my fingers can think. So we usually think that we the intellect is all in the head, and the intellect is in the brain actually. But you must have a heart for a teacher. That's the most important. First message I want to convey to you is that your passion, your commitment, and you must have a heart for a teacher. So the art of a teacher is that I want to share a very interesting reality of a school teacher to you. I mean, for me, the school teachers are very as important and more important or as good as the college teachers. I don't distinguish between a teacher in the college, in the university, and the school teacher, or a primary teacher, or a high school teacher. Teacher is a universal subject. So a very interesting thing is that there is a saying in all parts of the world, but particularly including in India, we say that the teachers don't get heart attack, mostly, and even by age. So then people ask that why is it that the teachers don't get a heart attack? The reason is that they survive every day by teaching, interacting with the children, interacting with the students, and the tremors of unanticipated questions and unanticipated realities. Just imagine a classroom. Just imagine a classroom of 35 people in a school and or in a college, when you just go to the first time, or when the children come to you, undergraduates come to you to meet the first time they are seeing you as a teacher. You don't know anything about them, nor they know anything about you. But then, in the next 20 days, or in the next few months, or in the next year, or by third year, and you see the relationship between the teacher and the student is that there is no such wonderful relationship as such as the relationship between the teacher and the student. How does this happen? Is it by just teaching from the textbook, or is it by reading, making them to read and write an examination and giving them a certificate? I would say no. There is something more than that. There's something more than that. So, is it just the love, which the parents can provide the love, and which their others can also show that same love and compassion? What is that being a teacher? What is that being a teacher? Is that the teacher is the guiding spirit in this world. And the teacher is the guiding spirit. And guiding spirit in a sense as that the most unbiased guiding spirit in this world. Even our father, my father, your father, or anyone's father, or our parents want us to do something. Want us to say, you do this, you become a doctor, you become a scientist, you become a lawyer. But the teachers tell you one thing is that become a good person, become a good man, become a good human being, good woman, good person. What does that mean is that the ethical aspects of a good life, ethical aspects of a life of a student, we always wish, we don't discriminate even between what you call, we don't like less of a student who's not performing in the examination. Do we ever hate, do we ever say that, I don't like this boy because, or this girl because he or she is not doing well, he or she is not scoring marks in the examination. We never do that. We love everyone the same. The so-called best student in the class or the so-called the least performer, because we know that the performance is also a passing phenomenon, but life is a much longer one. So it is this quality of a teacher which is a very, very important aspect. And I always tell everyone, teaching is one profession, and there is, I've taught in Delhi University, I've taught in Madras University, I've taught in other universities in different parts of the world. So when some people come and say that if I don't get something that I will become a teacher, you can become a teacher. But when you become a teacher and you become a good teacher, you cannot leave the teaching in your life. I mean, being a teacher. That's the uniqueness of the profession. Your choice may be it's a number one, number two, number three in your life. But if you ever become a teacher, you are a teacher for life. You are a teacher for your life, and this is the most important value of a teaching. So if you are a teacher for life, then you have to be one to establish that quality of being a teacher. And when you say that, what is that of being a quality of a teacher is that, we talked about attitude of unbiasedness, and then commitment, passion, and the intellectual curiosity, the human curiosity. Intellectual curiosity is all about the subject, is all about teaching the class from the textbook and teaching the class to students about you tell them what to read and about we also, when you say about what to read, and we never say what not to read. The good teacher never says, don't read this. The good teacher says, you should read this, you should also read this. Because we must open as many windows to our children, to our students. That's the whole idea of a teaching. And if we are to teach to students only the questions and answers to them, then we are another textbook. We are not simply a textbook. And I want to recall Mahatma Gandhi's statement to when he was initiating an education movement in Gujarat at the time. So what they call Nai Talim, the new education movement that Gandhi was inspired, and he was talking to his teachers. And so the teachers asked Mahatma Gandhi at one question to him, saying that the children keep asking about the textbooks, and for subjects like history and subjects like geography and science and languages, and but we don't have as many textbooks as we would like to prescribe. And so Gandhi asked about to the teachers, do you read books? Do you read enough books? I mean, children can't read. How can you expect about 10-year-old child to read 10 books for one subject in 1 year? Not possible. and not possible also for the undergraduate students, not possible even for the postgraduate students. And but who can make the difference is that a teacher can make the difference by reading. That's what makes a good teacher. A good teacher is about is not just simply prescribing textbooks to the children. Students tell them read this, read that, but we should ask our questions to ourselves. Have I read this book? Should I not access another book before I meet my students? And then we tell our students, you must read newspapers, you must read publications as we teach our children and students. But we should also see, but how much time we spend reading newspapers? How much time we read books? How many hours we spend reading the books? I'll come to the next question about the what you call about the reading issues. So when Gandhi replied to the teachers, you should be the textbook. I mean, which is the best textbook is always the teacher. I would like to tell you a message in this particular conversation. Anytime I want to tell you is that, if any student asks you about, which is the good book for this particular subject, sir or madam, if they ask you in a class, tell them that all the textbooks that you can prescribe. But you must tell yourself, I must be the best textbooks to my students by not just simply repeating everything what is already in the textbook, but making them to be engaged with the subject, with the pursuit of knowledge, and by being compassionate. That's more important. So this is a very, very important aspect about you are the best textbook to your students. And then, in terms of what you call as the reading, in a very interesting aspect about reading is that as a teacher, the best time I always believe about in teaching teaching in college or teaching in school, and generally people teach one subject, if it's a social sciences or in a natural or physical sciences, in any subject for that matter. So what they normally prescribe is that they say that okay, and I would like to teach this particular aspect, history. I want to teach modern history. And suppose you're teaching modern history for 20 years, you want to be an expert. That is fine, but you also must understand ancient history. You must also understand about the Middle Ages, and you cannot simply be an exclusive person, exceptional. It is good, but it's a kind of being a specialist knowledge. But you have to build a bridge between a specialist as well as a generalist. So this is the most important thing. Being a specialist is very good, a competent, professional, specialist knowledge. It is a very good thing. But I'll give you an example. What is the difference between a specialist and a generalist? And you cannot just be absolute dividing on the specialist and generalist. Like today, for example, if I have a headache, and I go to a doctor, and but I don't find a doctor in my hometown or in Chennai. Suddenly, if I go to a doctor and say I come for a headache, the doctor will laugh. He said, you come for a headache. We don't have a treatment for a headache. And then the doctor would say, yes, okay, probably we will scan you. Then we will put you through different scanning, the testing, and then finally after 3 days he will say that you are all right. I don't think you have any serious problem. So, but then 20, 30 years back, in the same country, you had doctors who are generalists and who are not so much specialists like neurologists or very special categories of doctors and professionals. So when you went to go to see a doctor who is a generalist, he treated you by asking about headache, and he will talk to you about your personal problems, your health issues, your family, and then your habits and the health design and everything. And finally he'll say, oh, you're all right, and you just need to take some very minor dosage. He is not going to scan your head. But the difference between a generalist and a specialist is that the generalist normally kind of like, explores your mind and explores your health through your mind. A specialist explores your body and through the machines. So now, we must find a balance between these two worlds. I'm not saying we don't need specialists. We need specialists, but we also cannot abandon being explorer of the mind of our students, of our knowledge system. We need to find a balance between being a specialist and being a generalist in pursuing knowledge. And otherwise, we will lose the common wisdom of this world. The common wisdom of the world tells us if you're not well, and it's you don't have to go to a doctor immediately. You have to see why I'm not well. And what is wrong with me? What is wrong with my food? What is wrong with my schedule? So you ask several questions. Similarly, we don't rush to a particular situation, common ailments. So this traditional wisdom, is also important in teaching to understand our students. And like in teaching, like I said to you right in the beginning, is that, and this is one heart of a teacher that never discriminates any child, any boy or a girl in the classroom or outside and ever in their life. This is the greatest compliment to the teacher, being a teacher. We never discriminate. And above all, another thing is that, even in the art of teaching is that you must understand the philosophy of teaching. The philosophy of teaching is that we wish, we also have children. We want our children to study, we want our children to come up in life and do well, settle down, happy and everything. And then, in much more than that, we wish for all the children in our classes, whether in school or in the college or in the universities, and all of them to do well, not only in studies and do well in life. This is the art of a teacher. Just imagine this. What we wish for our children, we never compare that my child has not performed as good as a child that I teach in the college or in the university. We never compare. We never regret. We feel proud, more proud, and equally proud with the performance of the children and students who come year after year, and for about 3 decades of children when they pass by, we feel our heart for all the children. This is the real heart of a teacher. When you say about what it is to be a teaching, this is what means to be a teacher. And then one other aspect about it is not an art. When I say that art of teaching is not something to be glorified as a great concept, an art of living, but it is by values. It is by certain values that we practice. It's a very famous Aristotelian proverb, is that excellence is not an accidental one. It is an everyday practice in life. And excellence is not an accidental thing. It's not an hypothetical thing. So when a teacher performs, and every day, day after day, for decades, for days and months and years and decades, then it is, when you say, oh, my teacher is good. But for us, we don't see that ourselves. But what we see is that I have to be honest in my commitment. And we must read. The more important thing is that as a teacher, it is very important for us to be reading. Generally what happens is that when we are in the 20s and 30s and we read more, you will be very surprised. This is by a clear observation, because you have joined the profession and you're new to the profession, the subject is new, and by the mid-30s we think we know the subject, and then we tend to read less. And we write notes, we prepare our notes, and then the the subject materials very actively by in the early part of a career. The mid-career, we go back to using that. In the late career, we don't even use it. So what happens is that we think we know, but that is not correct way of approaching our job, approaching our profession. We must be reading much more than others. We must be reading continuously. That is the most important aspect of being a teacher. The reading is a very, very important aspect. Continuous reading, and every class that we go, like, every class is a new and a fresh and first time experience. Why I mention that every class is a first time and a significant experience is that, like, we perform about 100 times right, but if we perform one time wrong, and finally we are judged by our mistake, we are judged by our form. It's like the greatest concept. Like, all good things are performed as long as it works well and right, and everything comes to an end by one bad performance. So we must remember that when our students come by and go by, they remember us not for all the right things we do, but we are also remembered for one wrong thing we do in our profession. By even in one class, at this is the very, very important. Like, in a game of cricket, and it takes us to play the game. I mean, like, all the while, it takes just one good ball or a bad stroke that brings an end to an innings. A teaching commitment is also like that. I see a hand rise, and I don't know whether this is the format is okay with you, and I can take the question right away if you allow me to do that, or if you can come back and if I can wait and take the question right after some time, I can do that. Is it Dr. Seema? Is that the hands raised, and can I take the question?
Sir, please go ahead with your lecture, and at the end there will be question answer session. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. So I come up to this aspect of this reading is a very important aspect. So we have to read actually. The art of teaching is not just creating something which doesn't exist. It is about, like, practicing something which exists within us. That is about, like, a reading and being a textbook and being a person of an unbiased, open commitment to not only to the profession but to the human beings and to the children and to the students that we come across in our all life for 3 or 4 decades of life. It's not a small time in any of our lifetime. And then I worked with, I want to share this experience of, I worked with training refugees, teachers in the refugee communities, particularly with the Tibetan community for nearly, as an advisor to the Tibetan government in exile. I was part of designing the teaching curriculum for them, and called as the new education policy for the basic education policy for the Tibetan government in exile, which is based in Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. So for 8 years we worked with them. There are 2 experiences I want to share with you. So we were first drafting the education policy, first of all. And when we were drafting the education policy, a question we often ask to ourselves is that it is very easy to draft a policy. I don't mean easy by in a literal sense. And, like, as long as you are not involved in implementation, you can draft and tell anything. Like we tell our students in the summer or in this thing, I want you to study during this time, I want you to prepare these assignments and come back after vacation. And the students all will be saying that, like, this is very disproportionate assignments for the vacation. So, like, we can say anything to our students about preparation. So what happened in this case of the Tibetans is that when they designed a policy, they asked us, you must implement the policy that you designed. This is a very, very important aspect. Like, this is a very important aspect is that you must implement the policy you design. So this is a challenge. So we said, okay, we will implement a policy. And we designed a policy for 4 years. a book, basic education policy. Then we took about another 4 years to implement it. While implementing the policy, we met across the Himalayan states, and right from Sikkim and right up to the Himachal Pradesh, and then in Bhutan, and then in Nepal. In all these countries, we engaged with the teachers to talk about implementation of an education policy. So for us, it is not only a theory that is important as a teacher. It's not only the science teachers who understand theory and practice. Even social sciences, in history, in politics, in sociology, and in different in subjects, in different medicine. So it's all by any subject in teaching, learning that does not interact between theory and practice, it is only halfway. So we must kind of understand that we can preach our students, but we must also enable our students to experience what we teach. And you can ask, how can we experience about in social sciences? You can do that. You can do that in sciences. You can do that in social sciences, in mathematical sciences. It's absolutely possible. Like in technology, and with artificial intelligence, and with the various developments in computer science, and in artificial intelligence, and remarkable developments are taking place. So following that, and if a teacher is following these developments, and students will automatically follow the developments in sciences, in mathematical sciences, in social sciences and natural sciences, in physical sciences, in history, in social, every subject, because constantly the world is undergoing a change. Rapidly things are changing. Rapidly new things are found in the world. And whether it's the space, we think when it happens in the space, and we are making a progress. No, even it happens, the progress inside the heart of a human beings. How we understand the world, what ideas we did not accept 20 years ago, what we are accepting now, and what we did not see 20 years ago, what we are seeing now, these are changes. Like what we normally say, whatever happens in the outside in the universe, it takes time to understand. When we see that, we call it invention, we call it discovery, we call it as a new experiments in science. But what happens inside your system, your mind, your intellect, your consciousness, it takes 20 years, it takes 30 years, we find it. That's also an inner exploration. That's why they say the distances and the depth of the two worlds are the most challenging to measure. The outer world, what we call the universe, the inner world, what we call as our mind. So these two worlds are we can't measure the depth and the deepness of these two worlds. That's where all the subjects or the knowledge pursued exist. So we must pursue this knowledge. We must pursue this knowledge. And I have another 10 more minutes, I think. And coming to another important aspect is in art of teacher. And this is a very boundless issue, boundless subject, and to talk about the art of teacher. And another important is that intellect is one thing, and cultivating the intellect and being a guiding spirit, being a mentor, being about all those things. And one aspect I want to share this to you, to most of you and all of you here, is that time. There is the concept of time is very, very important in teaching. That if you ever ask me, what is the greatest value you place in your life about for anything, is that I would say time. I come from the south, and I lived in the north, and I like about one of the most beautiful words I like in my in the languages, different languages, particularly in Hindi, I like this word, what you call vakt. And it's such a beautiful word to me. It's such a beautiful word to me whenever people say, yeah, vakt. That means about it's a time. You measure everything by time in life. And a teacher is also measured by time. Why I tell you about this, in the art of teaching, and by insights that if you want me to share about is that time is the most important aspect. What is the time? We have about usually our classes are scheduled as 45 minutes or to 1 hour or to 55 minutes, and sometimes about 2 hours. In the Western universities, and they give me about 2 hours schedule, and sometimes even 3 hours. 3 hours you can't teach, to tell you the truth. And the human intellect, and human intellect is about a comprehension for a child is that how much time a student can listen to you. First, you must evaluate with attention, and how much time you can deliver your lecture competently, clearly, competently, with cohesion, with a complete comprehension of the subject. And then, if you know these two things, how much time you can deliver a lecture with competence, with comprehension of the subject, with cohesion of the subject, and this is one side of the edge. On another side is that how much time your student can listen to you, and without being bored, without being tired, and both of you need to understand the space. And no matter if you are a great teacher, no matter you are the best read professor in the world, and you must understand that how can you communicate in the time that you have? That's one aspect. And then, and you must also understand that 35 students sitting in front of you are not all the same. In grasping what you say, in speaking, in understanding what you communicate. So you both have to measure, you have to draw what they call the golden mean, what you call as the Aristotelian golden mean. So this golden mean is very important for understanding your deliberations with the students every day in your life as a teacher. That's a very important aspect. It is not necessary our students, or the students whom you teach, have to be very intelligent, have to be very bright, have to be paying attention to all of the time. So first of all, we must know how much time that we can competently deliver this lecture. And then the third most important thing is that when I say time, the time also, we always say about time is that to another people, and time is very important, and as long as you are waiting. But we must ask ourselves, being punctual to a class is the greatest quality of a teacher. The greatest quality of a teacher, suppose imagine about 45 minutes class or a 50 minutes class. If a teacher comes about 15 minutes late every day to a class, and then leaves then spends time attendance about 10 minutes of marking attendance for the students. Then about in about 30 minutes is left for a class, and 20 minutes or 15 minutes you deliver a lecture. This is a piecemeal approach. The first thing for a teacher is that maximize your time of interaction with the students within the given time as 45 minutes or 15 minutes of time. Or even about, if you have even 40 minutes, if you are classes, or 50 minutes classes, or an hour class, but you have to be there right on the dot of the time. This is the most important value of being a teacher. If you know that you are on time, everyone will be on time in this world. Biggest problem in our lives is that, we always tell, oh, that man or that person will not be on time, so I can take it easy. But, if you don't go on time, and your students won't come on time. And then, the second thing is that if you yourself are late for the class, you can't tell students you are late to the students. But we always say, for example, I like to be there on time. But I also want to understand there can be different reasons for different people for not coming to a class on time. But teacher cannot have the different reasons and different circumstances. We only have one reason, one circumstances being on time. That's it. See, the choice between the students have a choice. We don't have a choice. And I had a very interesting experience with one of my students in Delhi University when teaching undergraduates at Hindu College. And one of the boys, he always came late to a class, not 1 day or 2 days. For all the days in the semester, he used to come late. So I once asked him, why do you come late and you live in a hostel and why don't you come on time? He just smiled. He said, I wake up late, I study for my UPSC and therefore I come late. So he wanted me to understand he is studying for UPSC and therefore I should not even have any serious question about it. I said, someday you will learn to value your time. Then I met him after 10 years. I'm telling you the truth. I'm not telling any story. I met him after 10 years in the heart of the city in Delhi, in the South Block, and he was already an IAS officer and heading a department. He said to me that, sir, I remember you every day when I go to office. And I asked him why. Because I never disliked him or anything. I liked him the same way, even if he had mistakes, not coming to class on time. He's still the same, my student. It doesn't matter. He may have the recent or false impression. So he knew that I liked him. I loved him the same way. So then he told me, sir, I really remember you every day when I go to my office. And I said, why do you remember? He said to me that, I am the director for my office and I am the boss, but nobody comes there on time. And I have to be there on time every day in my life. I go open virtually, be the first one to be there in order to tell people that as a director, others can follow. And I said, I'm very happy, but it is not a punishment being on time. I'm happy you go to your job on time, but don't take it as a punishment. You're just doing the right thing and enjoy that being on time. Do not complain about others being late, the students, and being late, anyone. You be on time. This is the most important thing I want to share with you. And some of this presentation of 45 minutes with you, art of teaching, and there is no art of teaching as such. I want to kind of demystify. It is about our values, and it is about our principles. It is about our commitment, and God and the society gives us the opportunity to be a teacher. And whatever profession we do is about we must really be committed, and we must be honest to our profession. We must be, in fact, that's the greatest aspect and trait in our life we must carry along. And I had an opportunity, as a researcher, to work as a researcher for a Hollywood filmmaker. And a Hollywood filmmaker, and usually they pay you a lot of money. And I worked as a researcher for a film on Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, a great man who fought for the freedom of this country. And I did a documentation of for the film. And the filmmaker said, you can stay and work with me, and if you like, and come and work with me. I said my first choice, and the only choice ever in life, even if I get something else, to be a teacher and to live and die as a teacher. And that's what I want to share with you. And I want to thank Professor Jana for this great privilege and opportunity of encouraging me to come and join this conversation with you. And I once again want to thank Professor Jana and Professor Dr. Maushmi Jana and all of you in this audience, and thank you one and all, and wish you good luck. And I'm happy to take questions from you. Yeah.
On behalf of college, very wonderful and the of your side. You are available.
Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
there any questions, please ask.
Question, Harishji?
There is no question, ma'am, in that book. So directly after all the participants.
You may encourage someone to open his video and ask question directly also.
All the participants are welcome to ask any questions regarding this session.
Harishji, your voice is not loud.
Okay, so if there is any questions, please ask.
Hello, Harishji?
There is no question from participants.
Your voice is not coming clearly. आपका आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
And there is no question from the participants.
Okay, okay. Yeah, no problems, no problems.
Oh, no question.
Yeah, I think Mr. Dr. Lohit Vaisala has asked a question. So I'll raise
Okay.
his hand. Yeah.
Yes.
yes,
Good question. Okay.
Well, good evening, sir. First of all, good evening, everybody. Well, my name is Lohit Baisla. Basically, I'm a research scholar in Guru Ghazidas Vishwavidyalaya, Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh. So, thank you very much for the valuable session and the quality talk on the art of teaching. Sometimes I get opportunity to teach undergraduate students here in the university as a scholar. So I feel sometimes I just want to have your view on the time management basically. When we deliver the lecture, as in 45 minutes you cover almost all the things, right? But sometimes we feel that, due to lack of time, we sometimes regret that we could also mention such things in the lecture.
Yes.
So how we can deliver the quality talk in the limited time that we have been given. So, and sometimes as you said that 2 hours or 3 hours for university we get for delivering the lecture. But if we talk about the concluding all the things that we see today over the YouTube channel, they edit the video and sometimes they deliver all the talk in 20 to 25 minutes. And that can be their compulsion because they want to conclude in 10 minutes video or in 15 minutes video. But here as we have time, 45 minutes to deliver the lecture basically, and sometimes it also takes some time in questioning, and it also takes time for attendance taking and all. So please tell us the time management to deliver quality lecture in 40 to 45 minutes. So this is my question.
Sure. Thank you very much. The first thing we always should do when we come to class is that first, as I said to you, we must come on time. And the second thing is that we must always recall the previous day's conversation. And so in a sense, the students are connected to the previous lecture, and things that we missed or wanted to say something and we feel that we should have said that, we can take that 5 minutes and recapping the previous conversation is a very important aspect. And then also summing up the discussion is another. Like the way we write, we also should be summing up with introducing and recalling the previous day conversation. And more important than all other issues is that when the YouTube and then in all the modern channels of communication, they talk for 15 minutes, it looks so impressive, but they are talking through a machine and to an audience who are also interacting with the machine, and not to the human audience. Human audience always is a live thing. So it can be, we can have a plan, things can just go in a different direction because the student can ask another question and two students can have a difference of opinion. So we let all these things happening. That is why we always say, why children coming to from home to learn in a school or students coming to university is that diversity of learning and open experience of learning but within this time, we should not measure only by our lecture. We should also measure the value of the lecture by the interaction, by the questions, by all that happened in a classroom. So I think we should not regret what if we are not able to complete, but we have an opportunity always to sum up or bring it back the next day. Thank you very much. Yes.
Now no questions?
Yeah, no more questions.
Okay. And vote with the side. Then I'm going to end of the session.
Thank you
And
very much.
we are greatly appalled by your insightful deliberation and differential analysis. We are immensely thankful to you, sir, for being with us in our program and making it a memorable one. With this, we come to an end of today's session. Thank you all.
Thank you.